The screen lights up with a close-up of a woman's phone. Notifications flood in like a storm. Texts from different men, emojis, compliments, promises of attention. Her fingers scroll through them almost absent-mindedly. Some messages are paragraphs long, dripping with desperation and eagerness. Others are short but clingy, begging for her time. Her face doesn't light up. She isn't impressed. This isn't new to her. This is her reality. Constant validation at her fingertips, endless options ready to worship her. Then the frame changes. A sharp cut. We see a different scene. A man in a quiet room, sunlight pouring over his desk as he writes in a notebook. His phone is face down, forgotten, silent. He is focused, completely absorbed in his work, building something bigger than himself, chasing a vision only he can see. No notifications pull him away. No constant need to check who texted back. His calm presence contrasts with the chaos of the first image. He's not chasing anyone. He's chasing greatness. Voiceover begins, calm yet powerful. She has options. So why should she choose you? The answer isn't what you think. This single question sets the stage for the truth most men never understand. You do not win a woman's attention by fighting for it. You do not stand out by begging, pleading, or competing in the endless circus of validation. Because when you chase, you look like everyone else. When you try too hard, you disappear in the crowd of men doing the same. The truth? Being different comes from value, not begging. Think about it. Every man who is trying to get her attention is doing the same thing. Texting too much, complimenting too often, proving his interest at every opportunity. They think persistence will win her heart. But here's the paradox. The harder you try to prove your worth, the less valuable you seem. Because value doesn't scream. Value whispers. Real value doesn't need to announce itself. It just exists. So when she sees a man who isn't chasing, a man who isn't desperate for her time or her attention, something shifts in her mind. Suddenly, this man becomes different. Not because he's trying to play games, not because he's pretending not to care, but because he truly doesn't need her validation to feel complete. That is power. That is rare. And rarity always attracts. Most men think the solution is to be louder, funnier, more present, more persistent. They believe they need to convince her. But attraction isn't a negotiation. It's a perception. And the men who appear most attractive are not the ones competing. They are the ones building themselves. Imagine the difference. One man sends 5 messages, checks his phone every 10 minutes, hopes for a reply. Another man sends 1 thoughtful message, then goes back to building his empire, working on his body, his business, his craft. Who do you think stands out? Who do you think she'll respect? Who do you think she'll remember? Because the truth is, choice is an illusion. She doesn't choose based on the number of men chasing her. She chooses based on who makes her feel something different. And nothing feels more powerful to a woman than a man who values himself more than he values her attention. This is where most men fail. They make her the center of their universe before they've even earned a place in hers. They drop everything, abandon their mission, and pour all their energy into impressing her. But here's the hard truth. The moment you put her above your purpose, you've already lost. Why? Because purpose is masculine energy. It's direction. It's leadership. When you lose that, you lose the very thing that made you attractive in the first place. The man in that second scene, the one working in silence, calm and focused, he is rare. He is the prize. He isn't competing for her because he's competing with himself. His mission comes first. His self-respect comes first. And that is exactly why she notices him. Not because he tries to stand out, but because he already does. Confidence isn't built by chasing women. It's built by chasing goals. Respect isn't earned by begging for validation. It's earned by living in a way that demands it. Love doesn't come to the man who needs it most. It comes to the man who doesn't need it at all, but welcomes it when it aligns with his life. The question is simple. Why should she choose you? And the answer is even simpler. Because you're not like the rest. Not because you say you're different, but because you live differently. While others spend their days refreshing their messages, you're building something worth talking about. While others invest in her approval, you invest in yourself. While others drown in noise, you radiate silence. And in that silence, your presence speaks louder than words. This opening scene is not just a contrast between two people. It's a metaphor for two mindsets, the needy man versus the grounded man. One is a consumer of attention, the other is a creator of value. One looks outward for validation, the other looks inward for strength. One competes in the endless game of options, the other transcends it entirely. She has options. So what? Options don't matter when you're the standard. Options don't matter when you become the man she compares everyone else to. And that doesn't happen by accident. That doesn't happen by playing the game harder. It happens by leaving the game behind. Because the truth is this: the man who doesn't need to be chosen is always the one who gets chosen. Not because he manipulates, not because he pretends, but because he embodies something most men never will: self-sufficiency, purpose, and presence. So stop asking, how do I make her pick me? Start asking, how do I make myself undeniable? Because when you focus on that question, everything changes. You stop chasing and start attracting. You stop begging and start leading. You stop waiting for a message and start building a life that makes people want to be a part of it. When the voiceover ends, the visual lingers on the man working, calm, strong, unbothered. His phone is still silent, but he doesn't care. He's too busy becoming everything he needs to be. And the message is clear. You want to stand out? Stop trying so hard to be seen. Build so much value that the world can't ignore you. That is how you win in a world full of options. Not by chasing her, but by becoming the man she can't walk away from. Picture this: a crowded nightclub, a bar, or even a simple social media thread. Men everywhere trying to outshine each other, throwing compliments like confetti, hoping one of them lands. They laugh louder, they flex harder, they spend money they don't have to look important. They believe this is what it takes to win. Because in their minds, they're in a race, a competition with dozens, maybe hundreds, of other men, all fighting for one woman's attention. But here's the truth: that race? It's an illusion. It's not real. The moment you believe you're competing for her attention, you've already lost. Why? Because you've placed her on a pedestal so high that you've stripped yourself of all power. You've accepted a mindset of scarcity, thinking there's only one prize, and that prize is her. And when you act from scarcity, you act from weakness. The scarcity mindset says, if I don't win her, I lose everything. That belief controls your every move. It makes you desperate. It makes you needy. It makes you behave like every other man clawing for her time. And what happens when you act like every other man? You blend in. You become invisible. Look at the visual again. A group of men throwing their energy into impressing her, buying her drinks, telling her how beautiful she is, agreeing with everything she says, smiling too wide, leaning in too close. They're all competing with each other, thinking that if they just do a little more, she'll choose them. It's chaos, and she knows it. She feels the hunger in the room, and it doesn't attract her, it repels her. Then shift the frame. In the corner, there's one man. Calm, composed, not ignoring her out of spite, but simply absorbed in his own world. He's not cold, he's just not desperate. He talks when he wants to, and when he does, it's with purpose. He's not trying to prove anything. He doesn't laugh at jokes that aren't funny. He doesn't bend over backward for attention. He's present, but he's not performing. That man doesn't see competition because in his mind, there isn't any. He doesn't live in scarcity. He lives in abundance. And abundance isn't about having multiple women. It's about having options because you have value. Real options, real confidence, real purpose. The kind that comes from a life bigger than her attention. Here's the irony. The moment you stop competing is the moment you stand out. When you step out of the race, you look like someone who knows something they don't. You look like someone who isn't playing the same game. And that creates mystery. And mystery is magnetic. The problem with competition is this: it's reactive. It's a game where you respond to everyone else's moves instead of leading your own life. You watch what the others do and try to one-up them. They buy a drink, you buy two. They send a text, you send three. They give a compliment, you pour your heart out. And while you're busy reacting, you're forgetting the most important thing. You are the prize. But here's the truth most men never hear. Women aren't attracted to men who compete for them. They're attracted to men who compete with themselves. The man who wakes up every day and tries to be 1% better than yesterday. The man who invests in his growth, his craft, his fitness, his mind. The man who looks in the mirror and says, I don't need to beat them. I just need to beat who I was yesterday. That man doesn't chase, he attracts. He doesn't beg, he commands. So why do so many men fall into the trap of competition? It's because they fear losing. They think, if I don't act now, if I don't do something extra, she'll pick someone else. That fear drives their behavior, and fear is ugly. Fear smells like desperation, and desperation kills attraction faster than anything else. Confidence, on the other hand, says, if it's me, it's me. If it's not, it's not. Either way, I'm good. That's dangerous confidence. That's what separates you from the crowd. Because when you move like you don't need anyone to validate your worth, people start wondering why. They start asking, what makes him so sure of himself? Why doesn't he need to compete like everyone else? And the answer is simple, because his life is already full. He has a mission. He has purpose. He has hobbies, friends, goals, and passions that light him up. He doesn't need a woman to feel complete. He wants one who complements his journey. And that is why women choose him over the men fighting for scraps of her attention. Here's another truth. When you believe in competition, you give away your frame. You let her set the rules. She becomes the judge, the prize, the center of your universe. And you become just another contestant. But when you reject the illusion, you flip the script. You're no longer in her game. She's in yours. The visual tells the story perfectly. A storm of voices, laughter, fake smiles, and one man silent in his power. He's not ignoring her because he's arrogant. He's not acting too cool for attention. He's just genuinely uninterested in the game. And that is what makes him irresistible. Because in a world where everyone is trying too hard, the man who doesn't try at all, because he doesn't need to, is unforgettable. The illusion of competition exists because too many men have forgotten their worth. They've forgotten that value isn't something you chase, it's something you build. They think they need to fight for her, but the truth is, you don't fight for a queen when you are the king. You build your kingdom, and the right queen chooses to enter it. Let me leave you with this. If you ever feel like you're in competition for a woman's attention, stop. Not because you can't win, but because the moment you start playing that game, you've already lost. The only game worth playing is the one against yourself. The daily battle to improve, to grow, to lead, to live with purpose. When you win that game, the world notices. Women notice. Opportunities notice. So, the next time you walk into a room full of men trying to impress her, remember this. You are not in a race. You are not in competition. The only man you're competing with is the man you were yesterday. And when you live by that, you don't just attract women. You attract respect, success, and a life most men will never experience. Imagine a man who wakes up early, not because someone told him to, not because he wants to prove anything to the world, but because he knows who he is and where he is going. He laces his shoes, steps out into the morning air, and runs. Not to impress anyone, not to post it online, but because discipline is who he is. Later, he spends hours working on his craft, reading, building, creating. No one is clapping. No one is watching. And yet, he gives it everything. Why? Because his sense of worth is not dependent on applause. It's internal. It's unshakable. This is the power of self-worth. And it's rare. Most men live their lives trying to earn their value from the outside world. They chase likes, attention, validation. They send a text and sit there refreshing their screen every 30 seconds, waiting for a response, as if that little notification will define their significance. That is the trap, the belief that your worth depends on someone else's approval. A man who truly knows his worth never competes. He doesn't need to. Why? Because competition implies lack. It says, I need to win this because if I don't, I lose. But a man of self-worth doesn't play by those rules. He knows his value isn't tied to whether or not someone chooses him. His value is constant. It's anchored deep within. Look at the visual. This man isn't chasing anyone. He isn't scrolling through social media comparing his life to others. He's locked in, focused on his mission. His energy isn't scattered trying to impress strangers. It's concentrated on becoming the strongest version of himself. Physically, mentally, financially, spiritually. That kind of man is magnetic. Not because he tries to be, but because when you move with purpose and certainty, people feel it. Here's the truth. Attraction is not about chasing. It's about positioning. When you chase, you communicate neediness. When you position yourself as someone who knows his worth, you create pull. The more you need, the less they value you. The less you need, the more they want to be around you. This is the paradox most men never understand. The moment you stop seeking validation is the moment people start giving it to you freely. Self-worth is power because it changes the frame of every interaction. Think about it. If you don't know your worth, you enter every situation hoping to be chosen. You text hoping for a reply. You speak hoping to impress. You go on dates hoping to prove yourself. Every move you make is reactive, based on how the other person responds. That's weakness. That's living at the mercy of others. But when you know your worth, you flip the script. You're no longer asking, will they choose me? You're asking, do they align with my life? Do they deserve my time, my energy, my presence? That's not arrogance. That's clarity. Because you know what you bring to the table, and that table is full. Let me make this clear. Self-worth isn't about thinking you're better than everyone else. It's about not needing anyone to make you feel enough. It's about building such a solid foundation within yourself that rejection doesn't break you, attention doesn't make you, and opinions don't shake you. That's strength. That's dangerous confidence. A man of self-worth lives differently. He doesn't chase women, women chase him. Not because he's playing games or acting distant, but because he genuinely doesn't need them to feel complete. He enjoys their company, yes. He loves deeply when he chooses to, yes. But he's not dependent on it. And that independence is attractive because it signals abundance. It signals that his life is already full, with or without anyone. Here's what most men don't realize. Women are not drawn to men who beg for attention. They're drawn to men who don't need it. A man who is centered, who has purpose, who has goals bigger than impressing her, that man stands out. While others are texting her good morning every day hoping to keep her interest, he's waking up and grinding on his mission. While others are arguing for her time, he's building something meaningful. That contrast is powerful. The power of self-worth is not loud. It doesn't need to announce itself. You can feel it in silence, in presence, in posture. When a man walks into a room with self-worth, he doesn't need to speak first. He doesn't need to dominate the conversation. His energy says enough. I know who I am. I know what I bring. And I don't need anyone to validate that. But let's be honest, it's not easy to get here. It takes work. It takes removing years of conditioning that taught you to measure yourself by external approval. It takes looking in the mirror and asking, who am I without validation? Who am I without attention? And then building the answer. It takes setting goals and crushing them, not for applause, but for self-respect. It takes saying no to people and things that don't serve you, even when it's hard. It takes being okay with being alone so that when you're with someone, it's a choice, not a need. When you master this, everything changes. People sense it. Opportunities come your way, not because you're lucky, but because self-worth radiates. It changes the way you walk, the way you talk, the way you look at people. It gives you boundaries. It makes you harder to manipulate because you're not afraid to lose someone. And that's when you become truly powerful, because nothing owns you. Look at the man in the visual again. He's training, sweating, pushing himself when no one is watching. That's self-worth. Because self-worth isn't built in the spotlight, it's built in the shadows. It's built in those early mornings when you could sleep in, but you don't. It's built when you study instead of wasting time. It's built when you invest in your health, your skills, your mind. Every rep, every page, every small discipline adds a brick to the wall of your self-worth. And one day, you walk into a room and people feel it. They don't know why, but they feel it. And here's the ultimate truth. When you know your worth, you never beg. You never settle. You never play small to keep someone close. You never tolerate disrespect just to avoid being alone. You don't need to compete because competition is for men who doubt themselves. You don't doubt. You don't chase. You attract. So ask yourself, do you know your worth? Not the worth people tell you you have. Not the worth you get from likes or compliments, but the worth that comes from who you are when the world is silent? If the answer is no, then start today. Build yourself. Invest in your growth. Stop chasing and start creating. Because when you truly know your worth, you won't have to convince anyone to choose you. They'll feel it. They'll see it. And they'll want to be part of what you've built, not because you begged for it, but because your presence demands it. That is the power of self-worth. It's not about competing. It's about becoming. It's about building such undeniable value that people naturally gravitate toward you. And the best part? Even if they don't, you're still good. Because your worth was never for sale. Picture this. Two men, both interested in the same woman. The first one is glued to his phone, thumbs racing, sending text after text. Every minute that passes without a reply feels like a punch to the gut. He's constantly checking if she's online, replaying every interaction in his head, analyzing her words like they hold the secrets to life itself. He's waiting, always waiting, waiting for her attention, waiting for her validation, waiting for her to decide whether he's good enough. Now look at the second man. His phone is on the table, notifications muted. Not because he doesn't care, but because he has other things to focus on. His goals, his training, his work, his life. He's moving forward with purpose. He isn't sitting there wondering what she's doing. He's too busy doing what matters to him. He isn't chasing anyone because he knows something most men don't. When you chase, you lose power. When you lead, you attract. This is the difference between desperation and dominance. One man is reactive. His entire emotional state depends on whether she replies, whether she gives him attention, whether she chooses him. The other man is proactive. His life doesn't stop for anyone. He's on his path, and anyone who wants to be part of it has to keep up. That energy is magnetic because leadership is attractive. Neediness repels. Here's the truth most men refuse to accept. The moment you start chasing, you put yourself beneath her. You make her the prize and you the pursuer. You put her on a pedestal and hope she notices you. And when you do that, you destroy the very thing that creates attraction, mystery, respect, and value. Because think about it. When you chase, you're saying, "You're more important than me. Your time is more valuable than mine. My life revolves around your decision." That's weakness, and weakness never attracts. Strong men don't chase. They lead. And leadership doesn't mean controlling others or acting arrogant. It means having a direction for your life and moving toward it relentlessly. It means setting the pace, setting the standard, setting the example. It means saying, "This is where I'm going. If you want to come with me, great. If not, I'll see you later." That mindset is rare. That mindset is powerful because it shows independence. It shows strength. It shows that your worth is not tied to anyone else. Women feel this difference immediately. When you chase, they sense it. They can feel your desperation even through a text. When you lead, they sense that too. They feel that you're not trying to win them over. You're just being who you are. And that calm certainty is irresistible. Because deep down, women don't want a man who waits on them. They want a man they can follow. A man who knows where he's going. A man who doesn't need them to feel complete, but chooses them because they add value to his already full life. Stop chasing. Stop sending 10 texts in a row. Stop rearranging your life to fit into hers. Stop checking your phone every 5 minutes hoping for a reply. Stop making her your purpose. Because the more you chase, the more you lose yourself. And the more you lose yourself, the less attractive you become. Instead, start leading. Start building. Start doing the things that make you proud when no one is watching. Start waking up early, training, studying, working on your craft. Start investing in your health, your finances, your mindset. Start becoming the kind of man who doesn't need to chase because he knows his worth and his worth speaks for itself. Here's something most men never understand. Leadership is silent. It's not about bragging or showing off. It's not about posting your grind on social media for validation. It's about consistency. It's about discipline. It's about making choices that align with your vision, even when no one notices. That's leadership. And leadership is attractive because it communicates strength, direction, and stability, qualities every woman craves in a man. Let me give you an example. 2 men ask the same woman out. One of them spends the entire conversation trying to impress her, saying whatever he thinks she wants to hear. He laughs too hard at her jokes. He agrees with everything. He's desperate to keep her interested because deep down, he's afraid of losing her. The other man, he's relaxed. He listens. He shares his thoughts honestly, even if they're different. He's not trying to force anything because he knows if it works, it works. If it doesn't, life goes on. Guess which one she respects more? Guess which one she wants to see again? It's always the man who leads, never the man who chases. Chasing kills attraction because it communicates scarcity. It says, "You're my only option. Without you, I have nothing." Leadership, on the other hand, communicates abundance. It says, "I'm good with or without you. My life is already full, but you're welcome to be part of it." That energy is powerful because it's rooted in self-worth. Now, let's address the fear that makes men chase in the first place. The fear of losing her. You're afraid that if you don't keep texting, calling, and checking in, she'll forget about you. You're afraid that if you don't compete, someone else will win. But here's the reality. The more you try to hold on, the faster you lose her. Because attraction isn't logical, it's emotional. And nothing kills emotional attraction faster than desperation. So what do you do instead? You focus on your purpose. You stay busy building your life. You communicate clearly, but you don't over-communicate. You show interest, but you don't smother. You give, but you don't give away your self-respect. You make her want to be part of your world, not because you begged for it, but because your world is so valuable, so fulfilling, so alive that she doesn't want to miss out. That's leadership. And here's the truth. If you lead, she follows. If you chase, she runs. It's that simple. Because chasing is about her. Leadership is about you. Chasing says, please like me. Leadership says, this is who I am. Take it or leave it. Which one do you think creates attraction? Which one do you think commands respect? Stop chasing. Start leading. Become the man who moves with purpose, who knows his direction, who doesn't wait for permission to live his life. When you do that, everything changes. Opportunities come to you. People respect you. And yes, women choose you. Not because you begged, but because you became the man they can't ignore. Here's the bottom line. Leadership attracts because it signals strength. Neediness repels because it signals weakness. And in life, in relationships, in business, strength always wins. So the question is, are you going to keep chasing or are you going to lead? Because the moment you stop chasing and start leading is the moment everything you want starts moving toward you. Imagine walking into a room where no one knows your name. You don't speak. You don't try to impress anyone. Yet, people notice you. Not because of your clothes or the car you drive, but because of something deeper, an energy that radiates without a single word. That is magnetic energy. It's not loud. It's not desperate. It's subtle, undeniable, and impossible to fake. Magnetic energy doesn't come from chasing people, begging for attention, or trying to prove yourself. It comes from the inside, from confidence, purpose, and self-respect. It's built when you know who you are, where you're going, and you don't need anyone's validation to keep moving forward. The truth is, most men today are trying to attract by doing more. More messages, more compliments, more effort. But attraction doesn't work like that. The harder you try to be liked, the less you are. Because people can sense neediness. They can feel when your energy says, please notice me. And nothing kills attraction faster than neediness. Magnetic energy is the opposite. It says, I'm good with or without you. I'm on my path. If you want to come along, great. If not, I'm still moving. That mindset flips the dynamic completely. Suddenly, you're not the one seeking approval. You're the one people seek out. So how do you build magnetic energy? It starts with confidence. And real confidence doesn't come from likes on Instagram or attention from women. It comes from doing hard things, keeping promises to yourself, and earning your own respect. It comes from showing up every day for your goals, even when no one is watching. When you hit the gym consistently, when you study, when you grind for your business, when you stay disciplined, your confidence grows. Not because someone told you you're amazing, but because you proved it to yourself. Confidence is quiet. It doesn't need to announce itself. It doesn't need to boast. People feel it in the way you walk, the way you carry yourself, the way you enter a room. And here's the secret. Confidence is attractive because it's rare. Most people are insecure. Most people doubt themselves. When you show up with calm certainty, it feels different. It stands out. It draws people in without effort. But confidence alone isn't enough. Magnetic energy also requires purpose. Purpose gives you direction. It gives your life meaning. It gives you something bigger than attention to focus on. Because here's the truth. If you don't have a purpose, you will make people your purpose. And that's when you become needy, clingy, and desperate for validation. Purpose makes you unshakable. When you know why you wake up every morning, when you're building something that matters, when your time is valuable because you're working towards something great, you stop chasing people. Not because you don't care, but because your mission matters more. That energy is irresistible because it shows independence. It shows strength. It shows that you're a leader, not a follower. Think about the men people admire most. They're not the ones blowing up phones, begging for attention. They're the ones who are so focused on their vision that the world can't ignore them. They move with certainty. They speak with confidence. They live with passion. And because they don't need validation, they get more of it. That's the paradox of attraction. The less you need it, the more you attract it. Now, let's talk about vibe, the thing people can't explain but can always feel. Your vibe is the energy you bring into every space. It's the mix of confidence, purpose, and presence. When you love what you do, when you're excited about your life, when you're truly happy with who you are, that energy is magnetic. People want to be around it. They want to feel it. They want to be part of it. But if your vibe is anxious, needy, or insecure, people feel that too. You can't fake energy. You can fake words, you can fake images, but energy is honest. And it comes from your inner state. If you want to attract effortlessly, you have to work on yourself first. You have to build a life you're proud of. You have to become someone you respect before expecting others to respect you. So what does that look like in practice? It means spending less time chasing and more time creating. It means replacing endless scrolling with reading. Replacing validation seeking with self-improvement. Replacing desperation with discipline. Every time you choose growth over comfort, your energy shifts. You become stronger, calmer, and more grounded. It also means developing emotional control. Magnetic energy isn't just about doing things. It's about how you carry yourself in every situation. When others panic, you stay calm. When others argue, you listen. When others seek attention, you remain centered. That composure makes people curious. It makes them want to understand you. It makes them drawn to you without even knowing why. And here's the most important part. Magnetic energy isn't about trying to attract. It's about becoming. Becoming the best version of yourself. Becoming disciplined. Becoming confident. Becoming focused. When you do that, attraction happens naturally. You don't have to chase because you've become the kind of man people chase. Building magnetic energy takes time. It's not an overnight transformation. But every day you choose discipline over distraction, purpose over pleasure, growth over comfort. You're building that aura. You're creating that energy that speaks before you do. People will start to notice. They'll say things like, "You've changed." They'll wonder what's different. And the truth is, everything is different because you stopped seeking and started building. You stopped begging and started leading. You stopped trying to attract and started becoming someone worth attracting. That's the key. Confidence and purpose make you stand out without trying. They make you magnetic without a word spoken. They make you the man who doesn't chase because he doesn't need to. He knows his value. He knows his direction. And that calm certainty is what makes everyone want to be around him. So stop asking, "How do I make people like me?" And start asking, "How do I become the kind of man who doesn't need to be liked?" Because when you do that, when you focus on becoming instead of begging, when you build yourself instead of chasing others, everything you want starts moving toward you. Detachment is not about arrogance. It's not about pretending you don't care. It's about truly knowing that your value does not depend on someone else's attention, approval, or affection. The man who can walk away, who does not cling, who does not beg, that man holds all the power. Why? Because in a world full of men who are desperate to be chosen, he is different. He is free. And freedom is magnetic. Most men today are prisoners of validation. They measure their worth by how quickly someone replies to a text, how many likes they get, or how often someone compliments them. They live in a constant state of need. Does she like me? Will she stay? What if I lose her? That mindset kills attraction because it radiates weakness. Neediness is a burden. It's heavy, and no one wants to carry it. Now imagine the opposite. A man who does not need anything from anyone. A man who enjoys someone's presence but is not controlled by it. A man who can say, "I want you, but I don't need you." That energy is rare. That energy is powerful. That energy flips the script completely. Suddenly, you're not chasing her, she's chasing you. Why? Because when you're detached, you create space. Space creates curiosity. Curiosity creates desire. People want what they can't easily have. If you're always available, always replying instantly, always adjusting your life for someone else, there is no mystery. There is no challenge. And without challenge, there is no attraction. Detachment is not coldness. It's strength. It means you have options because you have built yourself into someone valuable. It means your life is full. Your purpose, your goals, your mission, your passions, they matter more than whether someone texts you back. And because you are focused on something bigger, you naturally stand out from the crowd of men who orbit her like satellites, desperate for attention. The man who can walk away signals abundance. He signals confidence. He signals self-respect. He's saying, I am enough with or without you. That is the ultimate power move because it shows independence in a world obsessed with dependence. It shows leadership in a world full of followers. It shows strength in a world that glorifies weakness. But here's the truth. Detachment isn't easy. It goes against everything we've been taught. Society tells you, chase what you want. Go after her. Show her you care. And while effort matters, too much effort suffocates attraction. Because what starts as pursuit quickly turns into desperation if you're not careful. So how do you master the art of detachment? It starts with mindset. You must shift from, I need this person, to, I am complete with or without this person. This isn't just a line you repeat to yourself. It's a reality you build through discipline and self-improvement. When you spend your days working on your fitness, your business, your skills, your inner peace, you realize your life is already full. You don't need someone to complete you because you are whole. Next, you must stop reacting to every emotional impulse. When she doesn't reply for an hour, don't spiral into anxiety. Don't double text. Don't overthink. Respect your time and energy. Continue with your day. When you have plans and she cancels, don't rearrange everything to fit her schedule. Respect yourself enough to keep moving forward. The man who bends his entire life around someone else loses his frame. And when you lose your frame, you lose respect. Detachment also means being willing to walk away when respect is gone. Most men cling even harder when they sense someone pulling away. They beg. They plead. They lower their standards just to keep someone who has already mentally left. That is weakness. And weakness kills attraction instantly. The man who can calmly say, if this doesn't work, I'm okay with that, holds power. Because he is not afraid of loss. He understands that loss is part of life. And that courage makes him rare. The irony is this. The moment you truly detach, when you no longer need someone, that's often when they chase you the hardest. Why? Because people crave what they can't control. They are drawn to strength, to independence, to confidence. Detachment creates that dynamic without games, without manipulation. It's pure strength. Now, let's make something clear. Detachment is not about ignoring someone to make them chase you. That's immaturity. Detachment is about genuinely living a life so full, so meaningful, that you don't have time to obsess over someone's attention. It's about becoming a man who values his peace, his goals, and his mission more than constant reassurance. Think about the men who dominate attention effortlessly. Are they blowing up phones? Are they canceling their plans for every text? Are they seeking approval? No, they're too busy winning. They're too busy living. And because of that, people fight for a spot in their world. They don't chase because their energy makes others chase them. So, if you want to master detachment, focus on building yourself. Go to the gym, learn new skills, build your business, read, travel, meditate, improve every single day. Fill your life with purpose so there's no empty space for desperation. When your schedule is full of meaningful work and your mind is full of clarity, you simply don't have time to beg for anyone's attention. And here's the beauty. When you reach that level, when you are truly free from neediness, you become irresistible. Not because you're trying to be, not because you're playing games, but because you've mastered the rarest trait in the modern world, self-sufficiency. People feel that energy. They sense it the moment you walk in. You're calm, collected, confident. You're not scanning the room for approval. You're not waiting for validation. You're present. You're powerful. And that presence makes people want to be around you. The man who can walk away is the man she chases because he's the man who doesn't need her to define his worth. He's already whole. He's already enough. And that truth is magnetic beyond words. So stop clinging. Stop begging. Stop making someone else the center of your universe. Build your life. Protect your peace. Chase your purpose, not people. And watch what happens. When you master the art of detachment, the world comes to you. People talk too much. They brag. They post. They show off their lives in an attempt to impress others. They believe that the louder they shout, the more people will listen. But the truth is this. The ones who talk the loudest are usually the weakest. Real strength is silent. Real value doesn't need a speech. It speaks for itself through action, through presence, through results. When you walk into a room, You don't need to announce your worth. You don't need to explain why you're great. People can feel it. They can see it in the way you move, the way you carry yourself, the way you handle situations without panic. That's what separates the man who talks about being confident from the man who actually is. The difference? Actions. Think about it. How many men do you see posting motivational quotes online, but living completely different lives offline? How many men talk about grinding and success, but spend their nights doing nothing meaningful? Words are easy. Words cost nothing. They require no effort, no discipline, no sacrifice. But actions require commitment. Actions require consistency. Actions require you to back up every word you speak with evidence in reality. When you show, don't tell, you create an aura that words can never match. People respect what they see, not what they hear. If you say you're disciplined, but you're always late, no one believes you. If you say you're confident, but you constantly seek validation, no one respects you. But if you never say a word, and yet your life radiates discipline and control, everyone notices. That's the power of silence combined with action. Bragging is a sign of insecurity. A man who truly has power, who truly has confidence, doesn't feel the need to announce it. Why? Because he knows who he is. He doesn't need external validation to confirm his identity. The loudest in the room is rarely the strongest. The strongest is the one who doesn't need to be loud because his presence is enough. When you show instead of telling, you're not trying to convince anyone. You're not selling yourself. You're living your truth, and people naturally gravitate toward that. They can see your results, your energy, your composure, and they can feel that it's real. And because it's real, it's rare, and that makes it powerful. Imagine two men. The first man talks endlessly about how successful he's going to be, how hard he works, how everyone will respect him one day. The second man says nothing. He spends his days working in silence. No boasting, no bragging, just action. Months later, the first man is still talking. The second man, he's already there. He's already achieved what the first man was talking about. And now, he doesn't have to convince anyone because the results speak louder than any words could. That's the mindset you need. Stop telling the world what you're going to do and start doing it. Stop trying to impress people with promises and start impressing them with results. When you focus on showing instead of telling, you eliminate the need for approval because your work becomes undeniable. But why is this so important when it comes to attraction, respect, and influence? Because people are tired of empty talk. They've heard it all before. Everyone claims they're different. Everyone claims they're confident. Everyone claims they're successful. So words have lost their weight. The only thing that cuts through the noise is proof. Proof is powerful because it doesn't require explanation. You don't have to say, I'm disciplined, if your body shows it. You don't have to say, I'm focused, if your results prove it. You don't have to say, I'm confident, if people feel it when you enter the room. Actions make words unnecessary. This is where many men fail. They rely on words because actions are hard. They talk about confidence instead of developing it. They talk about success instead of chasing it. They talk about strength instead of building it. But the men who rise above, they choose the hard path. They choose the silent grind. They choose to show through discipline, through persistence, through excellence. The beautiful thing about show, don't tell, is that it builds respect automatically. You don't have to demand it. You don't have to beg for it. People respect what they can see. They respect results, not promises. They respect composure, not speeches. And once you earn that respect through action, it sticks. When you stop explaining yourself and start proving yourself, everything changes. You don't need to convince anyone to like you. You don't need to fight for attention. You don't need to shout to be heard. People will notice because the truth is impossible to ignore. Confidence is felt, not announced. Strength is shown, not declared. Success is demonstrated, not posted. Stop chasing validation through words and start earning respect through action. The next time you feel like saying something to prove yourself, pause. Ask yourself, can I prove this instead? Because when you do, you separate yourself from 99% of men who only talk. So how do you live this principle every day? First, eliminate unnecessary talking. Stop over-explaining yourself. Stop announcing your goals. Stop bragging about what you plan to do. Let your progress speak. Second, act with intention. Everything you do should align with the man you want to become. If you want to be respected for discipline, live disciplined. If you want to be admired for confidence, Build confidence through mastery and self-control. Finally, stay patient. Showing instead of telling takes time because real results don't happen overnight. But that's what makes them powerful. That's why, when people finally see your transformation, it blows them away. They can't deny what's in front of them. So remember this: stop talking. Start showing. Real value is quiet. Real strength is silent. Real power doesn't need words because the results say everything. Most men make the same mistake when it comes to women. They try to control something that isn't theirs to control. They think if they say the right words, send the perfect text, or compete harder than everyone else, she will choose them. They live in a constant state of anxiety, measuring their worth by her reactions, by her approval. This is weakness disguised as effort, and weakness is never attractive. The truth is simple: you cannot control her choices. You cannot control what she thinks, how she feels, or what she does. And the harder you try to control those things, the more you reveal your own lack of control over yourself. That's why most men fail. They obsess over her instead of mastering themselves. Marcus Aurelius said it best: "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Those words are the foundation of true power. Everything outside of you, her attention, her affection, her validation, is beyond your control. The only thing you truly own is your mind, your actions, your emotions, and your response to the world around you. The moment you understand this, you stop chasing and start leading. Self-control is magnetic. Why? Because it's rare. In a world full of men who are desperate for attention, who panic when they don't get an instant reply, who lose themselves over a woman's approval, the man who remains calm, composed, and focused on himself becomes different. He stands out without trying because his energy says one thing: I am enough. Let me ask you this. Who do you think she is more likely to respect? The man who blows up her phone because she didn't answer fast enough, or the man who doesn't even notice because he's too busy living his purpose? The man who gets emotional when she talks to another guy, or the man who doesn't care because his sense of worth isn't tied to her behavior? When you don't need to be chosen, you become the choice. That's the paradox. The men who beg for attention rarely get it. The men who demand validation never earn respect. But the man who is detached, not because he's playing games, but because he genuinely values his own mind and mission more than any external approval, that man becomes irresistible. And this is where the Stoic principle comes in. Stoicism teaches one simple truth: separate what you can control from what you cannot. You cannot control her feelings, but you can control how you show up. You cannot control her decisions, but you can control your focus. You cannot control the chaos of the world, but you can control the calm inside yourself. Imagine this. Two men face the same situation. She cancels plans last minute. The first man reacts emotionally. He feels disrespected, starts an argument, tries to guilt trip her into changing her mind. His entire mood depends on what she does. The second man, he stays calm. He says, "No problem," and goes on with his life. Maybe he uses the extra time to work on his goals, hit the gym, or read. Who do you think she'll respect more? The man who lost control because of her, or the man who didn't let her decision shake his peace? Control of self is the ultimate form of confidence. It shows strength, discipline, and independence. And independence is attractive because it signals abundance. You're telling the world, "I don't need you to feel whole. I am whole already." That energy is rare, and people are drawn to it because it's powerful. This doesn't mean you become cold or emotionless. Detachment isn't indifference. It's clarity. It's understanding that you can love without clinging. It's choosing to care without becoming dependent. It's saying, "I appreciate you, but my happiness isn't in your hands." That's the mindset of a strong man. The men who master this principle become unshakable. Rejection doesn't destroy them. Delays don't frustrate them. Tests don't scare them, because they know something most men don't. The only battle worth fighting is the battle within. If you win that, you win everything. So how do you apply this in your life? Start by observing your impulses. When you feel the urge to double text because she hasn't replied, stop. Ask yourself, am I doing this because I respect myself, or because I need validation? When you feel jealousy creeping in because she's talking to other men, pause. Ask yourself, am I reacting to something I can't control, or focusing on what I can, my own value? Every time you shift the focus from her to yourself, you gain strength. Every time you choose calm over chaos, you gain respect. And not just from her, from yourself. And that's the respect that matters most, because once you have it, no one can take it away. Here's the truth most men don't want to hear. She doesn't want a man who lives for her. She wants a man who lives for himself and invites her to join his world. A man who has a mission. A man who has control over his mind and emotions. A man who isn't moved by every little thing because he knows what really matters. That's why the quote from Marcus Aurelius is so powerful. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Stop wasting energy on what you cannot control. Stop obsessing over her choices. Start mastering your own. Because when you do, everything changes. Your confidence grows. Your presence becomes stronger. Your energy becomes magnetic. The man who needs nothing becomes the man who has everything. Why? Because he is free. Free from the chains of validation. Free from the fear of loss. Free from the illusion that his worth depends on anyone else. And freedom is attractive. Freedom is power. Freedom makes you untouchable. So next time you catch yourself thinking, how do I make her choose me? Remember this. You don't. You make yourself the man worth choosing by mastering yourself. You become the kind of man who doesn't need to be chosen, and because of that, everyone wants to choose him. Control yourself, not her. That's the Stoic way. That's the path to real strength. That's how you become the man she can't ignore. Not because you tried to control her, but because you mastered the only thing you truly own, yourself. Most men spend their lives trying to win someone else's approval. They chase, they beg, they compete like desperate animals for attention, thinking that if they just do enough, if they just fight harder, they will be chosen. But here's the reality. That mindset is exactly why they fail. A man who competes for validation becomes common, predictable, and replaceable. He is no different from the hundreds of others doing the exact same thing. You want to know the secret? The man who stands out isn't the one fighting the hardest for her attention. It's the one who doesn't need it. The one who isn't playing the game because he's too focused on his own mission, his own value, his own growth. That man becomes rare, and rarity is magnetic. Think about it. In a world full of men who are constantly chasing, constantly proving themselves, constantly seeking validation, what happens when a man does the opposite? He doesn't chase. He doesn't beg. He doesn't measure his worth by her response. Instead, he builds himself. He invests his energy in his goals, his health, his mind, his purpose. He knows that his value doesn't come from being chosen. It comes from who he becomes. That's why the rare man doesn't compete. He becomes the prize. When you're the prize, you don't run after anyone. You don't lower yourself to beg for attention. You let people qualify themselves to you because your time and your energy are sacred. And here's the truth. Women feel that. They feel the energy of a man who doesn't need them to feel complete. It creates a powerful shift because, suddenly, you are not like the rest. You are not desperate, not needy, not predictable. You're rare. And what's rare? It's valuable. People chase what they can't easily have. They admire what they can't control. They desire what feels different. And difference is created through discipline, self-control, and purpose. So, ask yourself, are you living like every other man? Or are you building yourself into something exceptional? Are you wasting hours on meaningless texts, arguments, and validation games? Or are you using those hours to sharpen your skills, grow your business, strengthen your body, and expand your mind? The man who is focused on himself wins by default because while others are fighting for scraps of attention, he is building an empire. While they are begging for her time, he is creating a life so powerful that she wants to be a part of it. That's the difference. That's the energy shift. Confidence, real confidence, comes from competence and independence. When you know your value, you don't ask for it. You don't chase it. You live it. You breathe it. You project it without saying a word because your life speaks louder than any sentence you could ever send. You've heard the phrase, be so good they can't ignore you. That's what this is about. Be so focused on building your life, so committed to becoming the best version of yourself, that people naturally gravitate toward you. Not because you begged, but because you became undeniable. And here's the twist most men will never understand. When you stop trying to win her, that's when she starts chasing you. Not because you're playing games, but because your energy shifted from neediness to abundance, from dependence to independence, from seeking approval to creating value. When a woman sees that you are unbothered, calm, focused, and fulfilled with or without her, it makes her curious. It makes her respect you. It makes her see you as different from the crowd of men who can't live a single day without her attention. And that curiosity, that respect, that's the foundation of real attraction. But let's go even deeper. This isn't just about women. This is about life. Everything you want, success, respect, wealth, relationships, comes to the man who builds, not the man who begs. The man who creates, not the man who chases. The man who becomes, not the man who waits to be chosen. So stop asking, how do I make her choose me? Stop asking, what do I need to say to get her attention? Stop asking, how do I compete with all these other guys? The answer is simple. You don't. You stop competing. You stop chasing. You stop lowering yourself to prove something to someone who hasn't earned your effort. Instead, you invest all that energy back into yourself. You become stronger, smarter, more disciplined, more successful. You build a life that speaks for you. You become so focused on your mission that everything else becomes secondary. And when you do that, something incredible happens. You no longer care about being chosen because you've already chosen yourself. And the paradox? That's when they start choosing you. Not because you begged, not because you played games, but because you became rare. And in a world full of men trying to be liked, the man who doesn't need to be liked becomes the most powerful man in the room. So, here's the final truth. Stop trying to win her. Win yourself first. Because the rare man never competes. He becomes the prize. And the prize doesn't chase. The prize attracts. The prize commands respect without asking for it. The prize knows his value and never discounts it for anyone. Start today. Build value. Build confidence. Build a life so strong, so full, so magnetic that the question is no longer, will she choose me? But do I even want to choose her? That's the level you should aim for. That's the mindset of the rare man. And when you reach that level, everything you were chasing will start chasing you.